World War II began on September 1st, 1939. I was only 8 years old when Britain joined the war on September 3rd, the day that my father fled to fight for our country. My brothers followed soon after, instantly volunteering, although only being a few years older than myself. I never knew what was going on. Well, not really. I'd catch whispers, overhearing conversations that would stop whenever I'd enter a room. As a child, I was always protected from the truth, or so they thought. I always knew that something wasn't right. I could feel it, a sense of uneasiness surrounding our home. Each day, my mother lived in constant fear. She'd always known that my brothers would fight for our country, although no matter how proud she was, it meant nothing against the constant terror she lived in, the fear that they may never return. A few days after the war began, my mother had made the decision to send me away to America, away from the chaos of the war in Europe, away from the destruction, away from her, to save me over herself. She did everything she could to get me away, to get me on that boat to America, although in the last moment I contracted diphtheria. They wouldn't take me, they couldn't. Wait for the next ship, they'd say, as they left me behind, trapped in the destruction of Europe. That very boat, the Red Cross ship to America, soon sunk after being bombed by the Germans during their trip, killing all of 300 plus children that were on board. In that moment, we came to the realization Britain was no place for a child during the war, especially in the centre of it all, where we were from, London. We had no escape, yet we couldn't remain here. The government had already made plans to evacuate children and civilians out of the major cities into the countryside, in fear of the German air raids on the city, naming it the Pied Piper operation. Don't worry, you'll be home soon. It's just a short holiday, my mother would tell me while packing my bags ready to send me away. Her hands trembled, her voice cracked, tears filled her eyes as she was forced to let go. Stood alone on the platform, watching her daughter get carried away on a train to the English countryside, away from home. The last of her family had been taken away from her. We were left separated, and no one knew how long it would be until we saw each other again. See you soon, Mum, I waved with a smile. Although would it truly be soon? I was yet to know anything. I felt nothing but excitement for my holiday, never questioning why my mother was stood distraught, broken as I drove into the distance. Thousands of those in London were left injured throughout the constant bombings, more than 1,000 left dead. All those who couldn't find a place to escape to, those who weren't placed on a train, those who hadn't had somebody sacrifice their own life in the return for those who they loved. Months were spent in the countryside until it began to get worse. The bombs were no longer exclusive to London, they were everywhere. Moments were spent at school watching the planes soar over the top of us. Nowhere was safe. If Britain had turned into an entirely dangerous place, I should at least be able to die beside my own mother. And that was the choice she had to make. If we are going to die, we are going to be together, she would say. It was horrendous. Coming back, everything was demolished. It was unbelievable. I had gone from a peaceful life in the countryside back to streets filled with rubble, collapsed buildings, and soldiers everywhere. I come from the east end of London, the area most heavily affected. It was all completely demolished around our old home. It was truly devastating. Each day was the same, constantly having to seek shelter underground, constantly having the sound of bombs being dropped around us, ringing in our ears day and night. The sight of German planes flying above us with our hearts constantly racing, would we be the next to go? We tried our hardest to make the best of each and every moment. My cousins, friends, and myself would go around the underground shelters, playing accordion to everyone, encouraging them to sing along, to fade out the sound of the distant explosions and cries for help. The community would each work together, as hard as they could to entertain London, to keep it going for as long as possible. We tried our hardest, although fewer and fewer people were here each day. More and more of my friends evacuated, while others had been in the centre of the bombings. I never saw those friends again. Here, come give me a hand, will you? My mother called me with a smile. I stood on the small ledge beneath our window, staring out at the pitch-black city. Not a street light in sight, not even a small light coming in from a window, as I passed the black tape to my mother, and she finished placing the last piece on our window. I passed up the large black curtains, fully blocking our home from the outside. The city was now black. A blackout had been enforced by the ARP. They had come around earlier, making sure that all homes had blackout curtains, ensuring that no light would show the German planes where to bomb, as they fly over the top of us. We had very little food during this time. We had to store as much food as we could, and had to grow all of our own food. and that's all anybody did to have food on the table that night. Although this wasn't always successful. London was not only as dark as ever, but we were also as hungry as we had ever been before. It wasn't the time to be alive. The final bomb from the Blitz came down on May 11th, 1941, and despite the ongoing war still in Eastern Europe, we were safe. The bombings became significantly less frequent, and it was time to celebrate. I was finally able to see my older brother, who was in the Air Force for the first time in a year or so, while my father continued to fight. My younger brother from the Navy was never to be seen again. His life was taken while serving our country. London was celebrating how much the chaos had calmed down. We could finally have our lights shining. We could have food. We could go outside and enjoy the fresh air. We felt free. We hadn't felt like that in a long time. In our eyes, the Nazi Party were like monsters. Although, to more than 90% of Germans, Hitler was seen as a strong and powerful leader. He was somebody that the majority of the population believed had the power to restore Germany's glory. He had nothing but constant support from millions of German citizens each and every day. Yet he destroyed thousands of lives, some of those who I loved. For the Germans, the Blitz was simply a strategy to impact Britain's economy, infrastructure, and therefore force the government to surrender. Although for us, it was nothing short of terror and widespread destruction. The day the Blitz ended was the greatest day of my life.